Hey everyone, this is Mike Del Preti, and you're listening to Context, the podcast where I'm talking to industry leaders about what's changing. This is the first of a new series called What Didn't Work. And my guest today is Nick Narodny. Hey, Nick.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome. Thank you for coming here and being so open to talk about this. So, kind of known each other for a couple of years, and I saw a post you put on LinkedIn basically saying that your proptech startup, your previous one, had kind of pivoted into something else, and you started to open up about the learnings. And I thought, man, what a powerful topic to talk about. Oftentimes we spend a lot of energy, congratulating companies when they raise money, but we just kind of ignore when they pivot or get acquired or go out of business. It's not something anybody talks about, which is really a shame because there's so much to learn out of that process. So my goal out of this is twofold. One is to reduce the stigma around trying and pivoting, trying and learning. It's not failure because nobody's failing out of this, but there is a stigma, right? People don't want to talk about that. So I want to do that. And then secondly, I want to pull out some of these incredible insights and learnings. You've been in the field for years. You raised a lot of money. You were in the market. You weren't just talking about things. You were doing them. And my God, you must have learned so much. So I want to pull that out. So yeah, thanks again for being here. Does that sound kind of like a fair overview?
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. So yeah, Nick, you're a proptech entrepreneur, but why don't you kind of fill in the gaps? What does that mean?
I started my first proptech company in 2010, Grovo Learning. We were based out in New York City, originally online learning for real estate agents. First big company that we worked with was Realogy at the time. And we invented something called micro learning, which is short snippets of video delivered in the moment of need. Grew that, sold that. Started another company named Aalto, which was an off-market marketplace in the Bay Area. I'll call that Aalto 1.0. We then pivoted to Aalto 2.0, which was the digital agent product, which I think we'll get into a lot today. Mm-hmm. That company did not work, and so I posted what Mike saw. And now I've started a new company called Titus, which is a new checkout experience for businesses that serve the real estate industry.
Awesome. And yeah, so I think for the scope of this podcast, we're going to be talking about Aalto.
Yeah.
How, just quick background, from start to pivot, how long was that time frame?
So we had the one pivot from the off-market marketplace when Clear Cooperation came out. We decided not to go into a multi-year lawsuit with NAR. And then we started the digital agent product, and it took about, I would say, 2 full hard-fought years to realize that it was not going to get to the scale that us, our team, our investors wanted.
And okay, so 2 years plus, how long was Aalto 1.0?
Aalto 1.0 was about 4 years.
Okay, so we're talking kind of 5-6 years all up here.
Yeah.
And then quantum of money that you raised. How much did you raise for these ventures?
$53 million.
From?
Sequoia Capital and Andreessen Horowitz.
Okay, so just to, that's a large amount of money, and those are top tier investors. So we're talking about, not only are we talking about something real, but we're talking about something real and big and supported by, really smart folks. And I imagine you and your team must have been fantastic, right?
Top flight team, people from every top prop tech and tech company you can imagine.
Amazing. Okay, awesome. And so that's what's exciting for me to kind of understand this whole journey, from idea to raising money, but really focusing on that last, pivot and what you said, this just didn't work. So let's just jump right in. What's kind of the biggest, and let's start with the big meaty thing. Like, what is the biggest learning you can take away from that 5-6 year experience?
Yeah, so I went to our board and I said, hey guys, this is not going to get to the scale we want. Do you want your money back? And that's the post that you saw. Mm. The reason I came to that conclusion was kind of from a high level. I think the way you would kind of brush it off is say we were not able to achieve product market fit. But there's a lot more to that. And in real estate, it's just a different beast, especially when you're talking about residential real estate transactions. They are different from a lot of other purchases, a lot of other things that human beings go through in their lives. And so I would say if I had to boil down the main reason that didn't work, number one is we did not properly account for the emotion that goes into a real estate purchase or a real estate sale. Because if you find your dream house Doesn't matter where it is. Let's say you find it from a friend told you about it. Let's say you find it on Zillow. When you're sitting across the table about to make an offer and you're looking at your significant other, you're just not going to go away from the norm. You're not. There's actually one group of people that will, and that's expats, people that were born and raised in another country and have moved to America. For whatever reason, they're willing to take that risk, but that's a small portion of the population. And a lot of times they don't do it after they've bought their first home. So then it's an even smaller portion of the population. People just fall back on tradition because buying a home, making an offer is oftentimes a one-way door. And you don't want to take a lot of risk when you're going through that door.
So make it real. Like in the day-to-day operation of Aalto when you were doing that, give us some examples of where you saw that in action.
Yeah, so we had a team of about 35. And that's engineers and then also licensed individuals who are helping folks with their purchase process. And time again, at any one time, we would have about 150 people across California that we were helping. Time and time again, you would have people that would be about to make an offer. So I found this perfect house. I'm ready to make an offer. We draft up all the paperwork. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm actually going to make an offer with this other agent that I've been looking at homes with.
Wow, so they'd get pretty far down the funnel and then bail out.
And a lot of times it was the agent they were looking with and they got upset because they wouldn't negotiate commission, or they got upset because an off-market home sold and that agent didn't know about, and so they go looking for something else and they would find Aalto. But when the rubber met the road and they were about to make an offer, they would much rather go with an agent that knew the listing agent or had some relationship in the community and could give them any leg up versus an unknown face that was making an offer.
So Aalto, at this point, Aalto's helping buyers?
Yeah.
And what's the value prop there? Is it a reduced commission?
Yeah, so we had the ability for both buyers and sellers to sell their home direct, right? So we called it direct real estate, where you could work directly with the selling parties. And on the buy side, the main benefit was reduced commission.
Okay. Can you share what the numbers are?
Yeah, it worked out to be about 1%.
Okay. So, typical transaction, people would be saving tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And if it's the buyer and the seller both working, it's 1% total.
Wow. Okay. So a lot of money saved. All right. So would you say, you're talking about losing people in the funnel, which is actually not what I would have thought the problem was. There's two potential areas, right? One is people just not even getting into the funnel. Like, oh, this sounds weird. I've never heard of this company before. I'm not going to do it. And the second is leakage in the funnel. Did you have both problems, or did one not work more than the other?
Oh, of course, both problems. My mom and brother are top real estate agents in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so when we made this change, I always thought about us going after a very different segment of home buyer and seller than they were. They were in the premium luxury market. I didn't think we would ever get that market, and that was correct. It was hard to get that market.
Why?
Even though the savings was much higher, it was they wanted more of a white glove experience, and they had an expectation of service across their life that could not be met with an asynchronous digital agent.
You just kind of verbatim repeat what I say in my class when I teach and I talk about this Purple Bricks case study, right? That's this fixed fee commission out of the UK. And I've looked at the data, so this is not what they've said. It's what the truth is. Their customer was kind of the mid-market home, or maybe a little less than that, which is counterintuitive because a higher priced home would save more money by using a service like that. But what you just said is exactly it. And I think that's a quiz question. So congratulations, you get an A. But yeah, like the higher priced homes don't want this perception. They don't want a discount brokerage sign in their front yard, right? They want a white glove service, all of that. So that's really interesting that you saw the same thing.
Yeah. We had successful transactions. It wasn't like we were putting up zeros, but it was nowhere near the venture scale that we needed to get to, much less a scale to even support the team that we had built. And again, I would say, the two reasons at the top of the funnel, not enough people were interested. The people that were interested either weren't that serious or didn't have that desirable home, unreasonable pricing expectations. And so someone that's looking to save in the Bay Area, $20,000 on buyer commission is also looking for a deal. Well, there's not really any deals in the San Francisco Bay Area. There's not really any deals in a lot of desirable real estate markets. You You pay what the market is yielding. And so that makes for a very difficult buy-side representation issue. You've got someone who's looking for a deal, wants savings. They're going to make a lot of offers that aren't going to be accepted. And all of a sudden, they're not profitable as a customer.
Do you think one of the reasons this didn't work is because you were in the Bay Area market?
Maybe. The next company, which is totally different, fintech company, we started in Atlanta because that's a much better representation of America. Maybe, but emotion is emotion. And I'll look across the table at any founder and tell them, like, you've got a problem if you're in Akron, Ohio, which is, I think, slightly below the median home price, because there is still that emotion, and that amount of money is the same weight on their shoulders as, whatever the $2 million average in San Francisco.
I want to unpack the emotion bit more. Can you say more about how you saw the emotion in the transactions, or kind of what you learned out of that?
Yeah, I mean, fear is a very powerful motivator. And so I would say there's two buckets. You've got pre-fear, okay? So the fear that I'm not going to get this house, I'm going to overpay.
Yeah.
Someone else is going to beat me. I'm making a mistake. I've missed something in the disclosures. It's a lot of issues, okay? So imagine like what's keeping you up at night is I'm going to get into this house and there's going to be a $100,000 money pit that my digital agent missed. This is the perfect house. I'm not going to get it because my agent doesn't know the listing agent, and she's going to go with someone she knows.
So it's interesting when you say digital agent. I mean, you didn't have an AI chatbot just kind of doing all this stuff. I imagine there were real humans licensed humans behind the transaction.
100%. Yeah, we called it digital agent because it was more asynchronous. It was a team of licensed individuals, which all were successful prior.
So do you think it's a reality problem or a perception problem?
Say more words.
You're saying, oh, I'm not going to get this assurance by using a digital agent. So is it the perception around a digital agent that it's, AI and technology and they're not going to be as good or as smart? Or is it a reality issue? Or was your team just, I hate saying this, like not as smart or not as good in some capacity as the on-the-ground agent?
It's a great question. So in our case, and I can only speak for Aalto, it was definitely perception. Our team lead was the number one agent in a portion of the Bay Area and is still one of the best agents I've ever met in my entire life. And anyone who's worked with her would say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And her team has since gone on to be individual agents, and they're some of the fastest rising individual contributor agents at brokerages across California.
Okay, so it's not a reality. It's all perception.
The one part of reality I will say is true is the existing agent network and how powerful that can be in a community. And that was really beyond our control, right? For better or for worse, agents like to do business with agents that they know. Now, there's a very good reason for this. Because my brother is my best friend. So I see this every single weekend. I spend pretty much the whole weekend with him, and he's on the phone all the time. Agents from out of town don't understand the way the local market works, don't understand that there's this specific drainage thing or sewer thing, and deals fall apart more often. Therefore, he should take their offers less because the deals will fall apart more often. And so the network is real. Now, some of that is just perceived because there are agents from out of town that do understand that. But he's trying to make a decision in the moment when he's got 6 offers on the table. And so those decision criteria are reality.
Interesting. Okay, so there are some reality stuff, and I think that's a really good point, and it sounds like a really key learning. What about on the perception side? When you say digital agent, I kind of get it, right? I kind of roll my eyes, and it's you probably the same way. Like it's every week you read about a new company launching. You're shaking your head right now. A new company launching or raising money trying to do a digital agent.
Yeah, they all reach out to me, and hopefully this podcast helps answer some of the questions that I do get from them.
And it's not to say we don't want these people to succeed.
No, not at all.
I love innovation. I love new ideas. That's great. But you know what? If we're constantly all in the cave banging rocks together and not learning, we're not going to advance as an industry. So please, for the love of God, listen and learn and come up with something new and cool and interesting that Nick hasn't already tried.
Well, no, you can try what I've tried. Just make it work. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So one of the other big learnings is the importance of different, not better. And I didn't coin this. This is category creation. Play Bigger is an incredible book on category creation, which I recommend everyone read. If you're trying to change an industry that is as big and hard to change as real estate, you better be totally different, like someone hasn't seen before, not just incrementally better, or even a lot better. And let me give you an example. Right now, we are talking on microphones that probably cost like $300 each. If I told you you could have the same microphone for $65, you would be like, I don't think it's going to be as good. There are things with pricing and better and cheaper that are ingrained in our minds as Americans that we are programmed to not believe.
Like what?
So if I tell you you're going to get a better real estate experience, you can have the same home with way less fees, and we're going to get you a deal, and now you can furnish your whole home or buy points on your mortgage, and nothing's going to change except for the fact that you have that savings. You'll get really excited. You might try it, but you're going to be skeptical.
Yeah, it's too good to be true.
Too good to be true. And so with AI, I'm not going to sit here and say AI is going to completely disrupt the role of the agent. It might augment it. It might just be, I think it's going to be something that we just can't even conceive at this moment. It's going to be so different that we don't understand, and it's hard for us to even think about.
So the different better thing is interesting, but I mean, you have to tell me, isn't there this weird catch-22 challenge where if it's for real estate, right? It's not like a high frequency, low value transaction. This is the lowest frequency, highest value transaction. But isn't the catch-22 that if it's too different, it won't succeed?
Of course. But it's funny, my co-founder in Titus, Craig, we talk about this a lot, right? Different isn't good in its own right.
Okay.
You need to be different and better, right? If I told you I've got these incredible guide dogs that will now sell you a home, you're going to be like, no, like that's really different.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so it is a little different, and the outcome needs to be better. I think the difference really comes down to the positioning and the solution that you encounter.
'Cause I think there's a lot of there's challenge around the difference, and I've been reading some books in different areas when talking about how people communicate, new or interesting or different products, right? So take the word revolutionize. There's certain things that people don't want revolutionized, right? I don't want to. Government. I don't want to revolutionize how government operates. Like revolution is the opposite of status quo and kind of stability, which I think a lot of people look for in government organizations, right? Do you want to revolutionize the home buying process? Like a lot of companies come out and say that, but I don't know that consumers want to use a revolutionary home buying process. What do you think?
Yeah, so what you're getting at is like, is there a problem here?
Yeah. Well, is there a problem, and how much risk are people willing to take on board?
Well, if you solve the problem, people are willing to take risk. If you solve the problem in a different way, let me give you an example. So I believe there is still a problem here. And there's a very specific example that makes me believe that. If I am moving, I typically want to move to a particular area, community, neighborhood, town. At any one point, there's only a handful of homes on the market. And I am restrained. I am handcuffed to the homes that happen to match up with this weird, obscure time frame that I am looking. That probably shouldn't be the case. And so part of the premise of Aalto was that every home should be for sale at all times. The problem with that is like any means that we have today is just obnoxious. That means you're getting a letter every week, or someone's calling you all the time. You're getting random offers. But there should be a way that people can move in a community that is more natural than it is today. And I don't, again, know what that solution is, but I think there's enough room in that problem for new solutions to exist.
So, I mean, you're saying that's a problem, but is that, how do you justify that? Is that just, you just think it's a problem, or has that been quantified? Like, is that a problem?
I'm not a statistician. You know much more about this data than I do. But pretty consistently, there's 2, 3, 5x more buyers looking in an area than there are homes for sale.
I guess it's probably a graduated scale. It's like, is it a problem? Yes or no? Is it a problem big enough to solve? Yes or no? Is it a problem big enough to solve at a venture scale? Yes or no, right?
Absolutely. And venture scale is a really interesting point. One of the conversations I oftentimes have with founders is like, there's a problem here. Why don't you just say you're profitable? Why don't you just keep solving it and make a great business that doesn't need the venture scale? Because once you try and go venture scale, it's really hard. And yes, in residential real estate, home buying and selling, venture scale is going to be very difficult. Okay.
Yeah. So here's a hypothesis I have, and I've shared this with other entrepreneurs and companies that I advise. But I think the challenge, real estate is a big enough industry where you will get people that'll try anything. You'll get some early adopters with any idea you come up with, right? Your guide dogs selling homes, you'd probably get a couple people doing that. The problem is that people, founders confuse early adopters with product market fit. And there's a big gap there. What do you think about that? Or maybe what do you think, but like, what have you learned in that space?
I would argue they're not adopting. And so because real estate is so episodic, people don't, unless you're a flipper, aren't buying homes every month. They're not buying homes every week. You need to get people to a point of purchase, have them make that purchase, then have them close on that purchase. Those are very distinct hoops that they need to jump through. And people being excited about a solution while they're shopping for a home or while they're prepping homes for sale, if there isn't money changing hands, I wouldn't say that you have the full product that you could claim you have the fit with.
So you basically need somebody to whip out their credit card, write a check. That equals actual product market fit.
Assuming you're trying to solve for the purchase or sale of homes. Now, if you are a subscription service that someone is paying for ahead of time, that's a totally different story.
So, I mean, when you were going through the journey with Aalto, either V1 or V2, how did you think about that? I mean, you get some customers, you get some more customers. Were you thinking, okay, this is enough? Does the graph need to be hockey sticking and going up and to the right? Like, how do you know when you hit product market fit or don't hit it?
This is a much debated topic by people that are a lot smarter than me. The best answer that I've heard is you feel a suction from the market. And you no longer feel like you need to advertise in the same way. And we felt that with Titus. And so every day we have lots of businesses signing up and using Titus, and we're not marketing to them. With Aalto, we had some word of mouth, but majority of people were seeing our ad, seeing a billboard, giving us a call. And they were getting really excited. They looked at a lot of homes. They loved our automated disclosure packet. But again, when the rubber met the road and they were sitting across the table, a lot of them just dropped off.
I want to talk about that in a second. But before that, what did your billboard say?
So let me start by saying that startups should not get billboards.
Okay.
We had the best billboard situation one could possibly imagine. We bought like $250,000 of billboards, which gets you about 80 billboards in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we bought them coming out of COVID. The thing is, no one else was buying billboards. So our billboards, some of them were up for a year.
Wow.
And we did not get anywhere close to return on that capital. They were supposed to be up for 2 weeks. They were up, a lot of them were up for a year, and we did not get return on that capital. Now, there's a good argument that we weren't salacious enough. The messaging wasn't enough. But we talked about homes you can't find anywhere else. We had some targeted to buyers, and then we had some targeted to sellers.
The part about homes you can't find anywhere else, what pops in my mind is that kind of,
Compass.
The Compass billboard, the one that I've posted about, and I keep reposting it and changing the billboard. Do you think that's a message that will resonate with consumers? Basically, the message is find houses you can't find anywhere else.
The number one call to action that was successful was homes you can't find anywhere else. Because one of those fears that a buyer has is I'm going to miss my dream home. And so the biggest value that we found, the biggest fit that we found was if we could deliver the buyer homes in the area they were looking, back to my original point, that they didn't know about. So if you're looking in Golden, Colorado for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you've seen everything on Zillow. You've even looked at Redfin and Realtor to make sure you're not missing anything. If I told you I have one home that you haven't seen, just one,
That's the key.
you will sign up.
That's the key, Nick. Every time I've talked about the exclusive inventory strategy, that's the point I make. It's just one. So many people are obsessed with this idea like, oh, Compass, the number of their exclusive listings, it's only a ridiculously small percentage of the market. And, they're talking, oh, it'd need to be 20%, 30%, 40%. My counter is exactly what you've said. And you've learned this in the field, doing it for real, and you're here and you're being completely open and honest. The learning you have is the same thing I'm saying. All you need is one.
Yes. Now, I will say from a macro environment, I think this really hurts the overall industry. It could potentially devolves into the European structure. We could talk about that all day long. But in the micro, if I can tell you I have one home that nobody else knows about, I might get you as a client. And if you're a traditional agent with Compass and you give that same white glove service, that relationship is more likely to stick.
Right.
Now, also in the field, like we knew about all the Compass exclusives, so do a lot of other agents. So there's other issues with this being exclusive to Compass, but those off-market homes and the allure of those off-market homes, it works. There's a reason Compass is plowing money into this. That is the number one value prop that we were able to convert people with.
And when you say it works, you mean it gets home buyers to pick up the phone?
Yes.
Yep. All right, so let's jump back to the other thing you said before I asked the billboard question. You said kind of people got to the table, like they go through the whole funnel and then they jump away. And we're talking about product market fit. Is it real or is it not? So dig into that. What does that mean for you? What did that mean for Aalto?
Yeah, so if you're doing buyer representation and you are making money only when a transaction is completed, you have three big hurdles of emotion, fear to get through. The first is what we talked about, this fear of missing out, fear that you're going to miss disclosure. The second is when the rubber meets the road and you're about to buy that home, and then you turn to your significant other who needs to sign the contracts, and you say, hey, I want to save us $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and we're going to go with this upstart. If there's like 4 or 5 offers on the table, you want to figure out how are you going to make your offer better. So maybe you just use that savings and increase your amount, but more often than not, you will just switch to a traditional agent because they have that relationship and increase your chances to win.
Wow. I mean, so that was real. Because people say this all the time, right? But you lived it. That was real for you.
Very real. Hundreds of buyers. They stop answering the phone, and when you do get a hold of them, they just say, oh, I ended up buying something.
Wow. And they've used an agent.
Used an agent. Now, for that expat community I was mentioning before, a lot of times they'll take like what I say a half jump. So they'll half jump to Redfin if Redfin is offering a commission rebate. But they will use someone that is local, more local to the community.
Did you try to fix that problem?
Yeah, of course. It's a tough problem to fix.
Yeah, I mean, did anything work, or what did you learn from trying to fix it?
Exclusive inventory works. If you're the one that has the exclusive inventory and you've cleared the way,
Yeah.
and everyone knows that it's a higher price than the comps, it can be a win-win-win. But that brings us to our third problem, which is the post-purchase fear. So when you buy a home, anyone listening to this is probably going to know, you do have a period when you can back out unless it's completely clean. But typically you've got at least 3 days to go through contingencies. The problem is anyone who's buying or selling a home knows a realtor.
At least one.
At least one. And after they've made a purchase, oftentimes one of the first calls they make is to that realtor being like, hey, I just bought this home at this price. What do you think? And we had this perfect Aalto transaction where a homeowner was private. They were a doctor in San Francisco. They didn't want anyone to know that they were moving practices. They listed their home on Aalto, where we obfuscate the address unless you pre-qualify as a buyer. Buyer came in, said, I'm interested. There were actually several buyers. One of those buyers made an offer at $2.2 million, which was 20% above the comps. Everyone was like, this is amazing. 1% total fee. Home goes into escrow. Both parties came back to us 2 days later and asked to back out because they had spoken to an agent friend Independent, not the same agent friend, two different agent friends that told them they were getting ripped off.
Ripped off how?
You're going to miss a disclosure. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Has anyone looked at this? Have you thought about mold? Have you thought about the foundation? What about the HOA docs?
So you're giving one example, and I love when people do this, right? They give one example and they expect that to kind of completely, solidify their argument whatever way they want to go. Is this just kind of one weird outlier, or is this representative of what you saw time and time again?
I'll argue it doesn't matter. If you're building a venture scale business, you can't be solving those one-to-one problems. It has to just work. Like I can't be selling 100 homes a month. I needed to be selling thousands. And if I'm dealing with that type of hand-to-hand combat in every transaction, you're never going to build a venture scale business.
And I mean, you said that happened hundreds and hundreds of times. Like, do you have any idea what the fallout rate was? I mean, is hundreds of, less than 1%, or was that like, oh, geez, 20% of the time?
I don't know the numbers like the back of my hand. All I know is it was enough for me to go offer my investors their money back. I have 4 children, and this is our only source of income. And so it had to be like very, very deep-seated belief, both from the feel of being a founder with the company and also the data.
If you could have fixed that one particular thing, people dropping out, at the table, would the business have worked?
No, you still have all the others. You still have the emotion up front. Again, we built the digital agent product because our off-market marketplace was blocked by Clear Cooperation. And so we pivoted into this. We did not start this way. And we pivoted into it because we got a lot of great early signal that a lot of founders out there get.
The Clear Cooperation, so you're talking about 2019,
Yeah.
the first iteration of that. So that just shut down your whole business.
Yeah, so we were offering the ability for real estate agents to share homes direct to home buyers and control the address. All buyer interest comes direct to them, which is similar to some of the CoStar promise of their products.
You're listing your lead.
Yeah, and it worked. We had in some markets we had more homes than Zillow that were listed and sold on Aalto, and people were getting higher prices than they were otherwise. And agents had much more control, and it made them more valuable.
So Clear Cooperation 2019, do you think, with what, 5 years since then and now, do you think that was a good move? Or do you think that was an instance of kind of the status quo, trying to maintain the status quo?
I have a pretty strong belief that anything anti-competitive isn't good for industries, especially something that anti-competitive. We can have a different conversation if we think off-market properties are good or bad, but I believe you should let it come out in the wash and let consumers decide on what's best for them. And by creating a rule that blocks me and other startups and other companies from trying something that I can tell you firsthand, lots of consumers wanted this. It wasn't just agents pushing it. I think you end up with a worse consumer experience.
What did the consumers want?
Selling your home is incredibly disruptive when you have kids. And if I have the option to not move out and go through that disruption of my life, and I have the option to say I need 90 days to stay here because I want to find my next house, and I can paint the perfect picture of my move, I'm going to try that, especially if it's with a trusted agent. And it's no risk because there's no days on market. You don't have all of the downside. My address isn't public. My kids' friends don't know I'm moving. They're moving.
So that's the value prop that Aalto offered.
That was a value prop Aalto offered through our partner agents.
And I mean, it sounds really similar to iBuying too, or buy before you sell, kind of the power buyers, right? There's this, you've identified it. Kids are the ultimate disruptor.
Yeah.
And that's the commonality across a lot of these new models.
Yeah.
So Clear Cooperation came out in 2019, and that just threw a wet blanket over your emerging business.
Yes. Yeah, we sat across the table from the local realtor association, and they told us they were going to fine our agents $5,000 per day when listings were on Aalto.
And not in the MLS?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you get any fines? Or was it just a threat?
I think there was one fine.
Yeah.
It was more just a threat. But it was enough of a threat that doesn't matter because we lost all interest from agents, okay? Because they were like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah. What other kind of lessons learned did you experience that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah. When I talk to founders, they oftentimes cite Carvana as an example of why this could work. And very quickly, people should realize Carvana is much closer to Open Door than a digital agent product or, AI home buyer. But buying a car is very different from buying a home. Buying a home is just a very different gravity of a decision, and it just happens way less. And so I think when you are building a product for very low frequency purchases and highly considered purchases, which, yes, car buying is the closest comp, but it's just different. If you don't like the car, you can sell the car. If you don't like the home, you've already moved your family into it. If you make a mistake, like, it completely disrupts your life.
I don't think car buying is a good comp at all.
Well, it's not, but I'm just saying a lot of people will kind of analytically, if you don't think about the emotion at all, right? Remove all emotion. I'm looking at buying a $20,000 car or a $300,000 home. Oh, well, those are, expensive, both expensive. And one has been fully digitized where you can do it online and see all the specs and learn everything about it. Why not this other?
Yeah, I just don't think it makes sense. I mean, more accurate comps, I think, would be, it's like choosing someone to marry or choosing which college you want to attend or your kid's going to attend.
Yeah.
Right? They're not one-way doors. You can back out of them. But the key is the downside of making a mistake is monumental.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not just monetary.
Yeah. And people haven't gone through that, right? So a lot of times, so we agree. So no one mentioned Carvana as a comp anymore.
Okay.
But a very common persona, I mentioned the expat persona. Another is the first-time home buyer persona. A lot of times a first-time home buyer looks at buying a home and they see how much it's going to cost, how much they pay their buyer's agent. They're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. I'm going to go look for an alternative. So they look for an alternative and they find an alternative. The problem is they haven't gone through it before. And so when they go make an offer and lose, because most buyers lose on their first offer, all of a sudden their entire perspective changes because they realize how big of a deal this is. And when something is that infrequent, you are oftentimes going to defer to the advice of the highest paid person, the best professional. Pregnancy is similar.
Mm-hmm.
You're having a baby. When the doctor recommends that you get a C-section, you're going to get that C-section.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to go and look up and see if there's a cheaper option.
Right.
Or go to the hospital down the road for a second opinion. Your kid is at risk.
Yeah.
And it's just an extreme situation that you're high pressure, hard to make a decision for yourself. So you defer to the advice of a professional.
And actually, before we were recording, you were talking about home births, to stay with the pregnancy theme. And I thought that was really interesting. One of the reasons you mentioned, not many people do home births is because it's just not what's done.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not what's done, even though it's done more often in Europe. It's not what's done here. And so people might think about it, might like the appeal of being at home. But when the rubber meets the road, the lower risk option to them or their friends is to go to the hospital and have it a traditional method.
Yeah. Imagine if you were starting a company and you were trying to encourage people to do more home births, right? If that was Aalto 3.0, right? You putting up the billboards. I mean, you can just imagine you'd be hitting the same kind of resistance that you hit.
Yeah, seems really interesting up front.
Yeah, I'll call this number. Oh, you have,
That baby's coming.
Yeah.
You're going to the hospital oftentimes, right? So I think it's just an interesting, like, this high emotion, coming back to the product market fit. It's really tough to put people into that high emotion state until they're in it. And so that means it's really tough to build a product.
So if you were to, wrap all this up and you were going to kind of, I don't know, give another entrepreneur some advice in this space, what would you say to them?
So I think there's two layers of advice. The first is just general startup advice. Find a segment of users that is so small, people call you crazy for addressing them. That segment could be individual home flippers. That segment could be some other group. I would encourage you not to make that segment geographic because every geography is so different, and the way real estate works is so different. So start with a really, really small market that you're trying to build a solution for, and do not expand until you have multiple fully completed transactions where money changes hands and you as a business made money. And the only way you can really separate the signal from the noise is to get people through those emotional hurdles that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Try things that are totally different than what anyone has thought of today. So if you tell me you can get me into a dream home that isn't listed, that I don't have to call anyone, or again, I can't even describe what that would look like. But because I can't describe, that's why I didn't continue trying to solve this problem.
Mm. When I've talked about that same subject, I've said it a little bit differently, and I've said you can't just be incrementally better; you have to be exponentially better.
Similar
Would you
point.
agree? Yeah.
And don't look at European models and think that they work. So the best person doing this to me is the founder of this company called Walter in Amsterdam named Steven. He's got a great business. That business is doing great. He's built an incredible digital agent. Anyone can go look at their product and see it and be like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It just is really hard to translate. Those markets operate totally different than they do here. And so don't think that those models can be exported to here.
Yeah. Okay, so is that your general startup advice? What's the proptech real estate startup advice?
No, my general startup advice is find a market that is so small no one else pays attention to and feel that suction from that market before expanding. The proptech real estate advice is figure out a way to really understand that emotion. The reason off-market homes is so appealing is because it plays on the emotion of fear. Fear of missing out. It is just fear of missing out. That's it. So figure out a way that you can really understand that the emotion that the home buyer or home seller goes through and improve it. Don't take advantage of it, but improve it or understand it in a way that you can satisfy their fears or hopes and dreams.
I've kind of joked about it in the past, but I don't know if it's a joke anymore. I mean, I think any real estate tech company, startup or otherwise, should have a CPO, a chief psychology officer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a kind of movement that chief marketing officers actually should be more about kind of chief category creation officers or things like that. And there's a lot of examples of this. But yeah, I mean, the category creation, the psychology, the emotion is just so important in this industry, way beyond anything else.
Yeah. And what, again, if we're kind of distilling it all, what's like the number one, the top lesson learned? I mean, this is kind of back to where we started. And I think you said it before we hit record. It was just like one crisp sentence. And I was like, that's it, Nick. Like, that's the thing I've been saying for years. And if that's your number one learning, like if we just did a 30-second podcast, it would just be your voice saying that one thing. So what's that one thing?
Yeah. Even if you've built the best technology in the world, a wonderful user experience, when a husband and wife are sitting across from each other at the dinner table, thinking about making an offer on a home the next morning, more often than not, they are going to go with what is most common, what is the safest. And that is their local real estate agent that has a relationship in the community that can give them advice that is nuanced and local, even if everything is exactly the same as your product.
All right, there it is. We'll kind of wrap up here. I mean, tons of learnings from the Aalto experience. And now, I mean, that transition to the next thing is really interesting. So your investors didn't want their money back. I mean, what was their, I guess, two questions. One is, are you still working with the exact same team of investors for this new venture? And then secondly, why do you think they didn't want their money back and they wanted to continue backing you after this didn't work?
Yeah, so the conversation, this was March of 2024. I went to them and I said, hey, this isn't going to work. Here's the best case scenario is getting to, a high 6-figure outcome. And I don't think we have enough capital to do that. Sorry, 9-figure. I said, here are the options. Number 1, I can give you the money back. Number 2, I can cut the team in half and keep going. Number 3 is I can cut the team down to a small group of 6 and we just try something totally different. And they said, both of them said the same thing independently. Do you still have energy? And I was like, man, I need a couple of weeks off. And they said, okay, keep going. Cut the team to 5, 6. And so I did, and fortunate enough to have a core group that from that Aalto team that stuck with us. And it's really hard. We had no idea what we were going to do. We knew it was going to be in real estate, and we very quickly rebranded the company to something kind of random. We called it Brenda. And we started exploring a bunch of new ideas from, open house check-in to, you name it. Fortunately, we hit on this problem of home prep and that people are just not investing in their homes, both the homeowners and the real estate agents, as much as they should, because the money goes out so much further from when the money comes in. And so that's the problem we've really started to solve with Titus, where we allow people to align all of the expenses to prep a home for sale with the money.
Why do you think the investors stuck with you?
I mean, you'd have to ask them. I think we've built a phenomenal relationship. And when you're raising money, the most important thing is to find a great partner, much more so than the brand of the firm or the valuation of your company. And I think we just have built a tremendous amount of trust. And they knew that if I told them I still had energy, I would keep going as hard as I could.
And same group of investors?
Yeah, same exact group of investors, Sequoia, Andreessen Horowitz, and Defy.
Amazing. All right. So as we wrap here, one last question. What prompted you to post that message on LinkedIn?
Yeah, well, I hadn't gone public with the fact that we had made the pivot and that Titus was even a thing. And we needed to start hiring. And so LinkedIn is one of the best hiring sources out there. And so the main reason that I will post is for both our existing team, but also potential new hires. And that really opened the door. If you look, the next day we posted our first role. And so we're back to hiring and growing again.
Well, I mean, I got to credit you. It was a very open and vulnerable and honest post. And also, I credit you for coming here because I think not many people want to have these conversations, right? People want to pretend everything's fine. It's like, it's like if you listen to a song, right? There's two ways songs end on the radio or on an album. One is they just stop, right? You're listening to it and then it's done. But that's not what happens when a company, quote unquote, fails or goes out of business or doesn't work. It's the other type of song, the fade out, where you're like, oh, wait, what happened? I was just listening to that song. Where is it? I was just reading about this company and where'd it go? And everybody makes these outcomes sound so big. Even if a company is, quote unquote, acquired by another business because they were running out of money and it was unsustainable, it's still a celebration. Oh, we were acquired. This is great. And everybody knows it's not true. Or at least there's more there. And that was the point of this, So my hope is to continue this as a series, What Didn't Work. I've chatted with some other entrepreneurs, and I'll be honest, there's not a lot out there that want to have this conversation. But if you're listening and you want to share these lesson learned stories and kind of give back to the community and the industry, drop me a line. Would love to have a chat. So Nick, thank you for ushering in this whole new era of talking about things that didn't work.
Yeah, of course. Hopefully people can take some learnings from this.
Absolutely. All right. My name is Mike Del Preti. You've been listening to Context, What Didn't Work. If you want to check out more of my research or podcasts, just head over to my website, mikedp.com. You can also sign up for my mailing list. All right. Thanks.